Thank you. Thank you, everybody. That was hard for me. To let go and just do my part. Today's talk is the gift of acceptance. Did you know that acceptance is the second necessary step to create change in your life? The first is awareness. Now, it's also the first step to let go of the idea that forgiveness is needed to heal, because who here believes that God is good all the time? So if God is good all the time, what do we need to forgive, right? We may not like certain circumstances and situations, but if we look at it like, okay, what is mine to learn here? What am I to do here? And then we get the blessings of what is ours to do. We're guided from that place. We still may not like the situation, but we like how we can handle it. That's the blessing that we get. Now, a vivid memory of mine was the first time I ever heard in an Al-Anon meeting from the Big Book, page 417 and 418, the definition of acceptance. And it says, "An acceptance is the answer to all my problems today. When I am disturbed, it is because I find some person, place, thing, or situation, some fact in my life unacceptable to me. And I can find no serenity until I accept that person, place, thing, or situation as being exactly what it is supposed to be at that moment." I was relieved. I was like, wow, I have power over this. I just have to let go of thinking I have the answer to make this better. I always thought I had the answer. Then when my sponsor would say, take your God shoes off. Take your God shoes off. You don't have the answers. You might not even have the answers for yourself, let alone think you got the answers for somebody else. So many times what gets in the way of acceptance is resistance, kind of like what we were saying, let go of resistance. Resistance is actually happening, or resistance to what is that part of ourselves that we are not accepting. So depending on what we're talking about, it could take each of us a long time to just accept. To accept what is, to accept who we are, to accept who somebody else is the way they are. I had interestingly enough, I was sharing with Arlene, and I've shared with you guys before, whenever a talk title comes to me, I just write it down and say, okay, that's the talk I have to do. But it never fails. The week or month before, that's my work for the week or month before. So I had a lot of work in acceptance this week, and it was challenging. And it was interesting to me to find myself caught up in the things that I wasn't accepting, like how much of my life and situations I don't just accept. One of the things was a good friend of mine has a young boy, 3 years old, and he, decided he wanted to wear dresses or wanted to dress like a girl. Well, his dad kind of freaked out. Well, I freaked out on the dad. I didn't say anything. This was all going on in my head. Thank God I knew enough not to say anything, because it's not my place, right? But it made me realize how I wasn't accepting the situation as it was, and that God is there and that it will all be okay. But it took me hours. It took me stories. You can't imagine the things I was saying in my head that I wanted to say to this man, okay? And it's not even my kid. It's somebody else's child. So it took me a couple hours. I'm like, whoa, your talk tomorrow is about acceptance. What aren't you accepting here, So some of the characteristics of self-acceptance include being able to see yourself fairly, accurately, and recognize what you are and aren't good at. Embracing all parts of yourself, even the negative ones, and being happy with who you are. Accepting your values, your preferences, your resources, your feelings, your intuitions, and actions, both past and present. This allows us to establish boundaries, which helps us in having healthy relationships. Recognizing your strengths and accomplishments without being overly vain about them. Learning to acknowledge your weaknesses and faults without beating yourself up over them or engaging in overly excessive negative self-talk. Having a positive attitude toward yourself and holding yourself in high regard without the need for someone else's approval. seeing yourself as a whole human being rather than defining yourself by any one characteristic, incident, ability, or weakness. Being able to love and accept yourself. Lack of self-acceptance can lead to a fractured sense of self, a deep within your subconscious of not liking parts of yourself and being disappointed in another part of yourself. These fragmented parts can only reconcile when you forgive and accept yourself. Acceptance it becomes like the strangest yet the strongest of power. Our inner blockage to turning over our will is only overcome by a decision and a choice. It does not usually happen with a feeling or a mere idea or a verse from religious scripture. It is the will itself. Our stubborn and self-defeating willfulness that must first be converted and handed over. It doesn't surrender easily because we identify ourselves as all of these things, all of these traits. From the time we were young and according to our ability, we have all taken control and tried to engineer our own lives in every possible way. And I have found more and more as I give it over and let it go and release and let God, my life gets so much easier. There's something called radical acceptance. Have you ever heard of radical acceptance? I was listening to a TED Talk by Maria Vasquez, and she said the most powerful thing we have is the story we tell ourselves about who we are. This leads to what we believe we are capable and deserving of. It leads to the thoughts that we allow to enter into our minds. And as we know, because it is what we practice here, our thoughts held in mind create in kind. Our story impacts the words we speak and the actions we take and the relationships that we have. We have to be intentional with the story that we tell. We need tools and affirmations, practices, and much more to be intentional about our story. Before all this, we have to be aware, and then we have to accept the stories that we tell. Emily Estahani did a TED Talk titled, "There is More to Life Than Happiness." She was amazing. She compared happiness and said, what is it? Why are we always striving for happiness? And it's fleeting. And what she found was more people are happy when they find meaning in life. And when you have meaning in life, happiness can come and go, but you still have that purpose that drives you. And within that meaning, there are 4 aspects, but one of the biggest ones is the story that we tell ourselves. So she was telling a story about a woman who's a janitor in a hospital. And when she tells her story, she says she saves lives every day. I'm like, wow. Because she cleans up. She tries to keep all of the germs away from these people. I'm like, that's a really great perspective on how to feel about being a janitor in a hospital. I said, that's a great story to tell yourself, you know? Unlike me, when at one point in my life, when I would hear a fire engine or a police car, I would think, oh my God, what have I done? Like they're coming to get me, you know? Like, what story am I telling myself? You know, I'm telling myself that I'm a fraud, right? So anyway, I've worked through that one. I don't do that anymore. Radical acceptance is one of the tools that can help us have something more than an ordinary life in our minds and in our hearts. We can have extraordinary life in relationships because we are so honest and authentic with ourselves. Brene Brown says, authenticity is the daily practice of letting go of who we think we are supposed to be and accepting and embracing who we really are. She also says the heart of compassion is acceptance. The better we are accepting ourselves and others, the more compassionate we can become. So I had to tap into that place of acceptance when I heard this story. And I heard the story I was telling myself about my friend and her son. Life will always give us something unexpected and unplanned. It will always give us a curveball or a change we are not expecting. When we have radical acceptance, we have more ease in our lives. Radical acceptance helps us let go of the why me and helps us look at what has happened and move to how am I going to respond to this situation. Have you ever experienced something that felt like the worst thing that ever happened to you, but it is a blessing to someone else and ultimately becomes a blessing to yourself? Like a breakup, like a divorce, like a wreck in your car or losing your job. ultimately, someone's divorce made me a very happy woman, right? So, thank you. At the time, I'm not sure how much of a blessing it felt to them, and at that time, I wasn't even going through a blessing. I had just lost somebody too, and that turned out to be an amazing blessing. So to hold that and remember, like, to let go of the why me and the victim, and keep breathing into, we still have to process the grief and the sadness, right? Because we're human. It's all a part of it. But it's also an acceptance. Getting to that place of acceptance can allow us to go on to the blessing. So looking at challenges as opportunities to hone our skills, to hone our practical spirituality skills, such as prayer and meditation and affirmations and denials and mindfulness and the words that we speak. Imagine how different we would show up in our lives when we realize there are situations that we give over our time and our energy to, things that we have no control over, like I did this week, or like traffic, right? I don't know about anybody here, but sometimes I can lose it in traffic, And there's times that we can start practicing radical acceptance, where we're not so emotionally involved. Or maybe another one that in my 12-step years of codependence, trying to change someone else. What a joke. What a joke. My goodness. Radical acceptance. We're always in situations that are here to teach us and help us grow and help us heal, if we choose to see them that way. It's all right here in front of us and within us. So to take control of our story and make room for the adventures and the miracles in our lives. I want to talk a little bit about acceptance in relationships. Like, how could acceptance or radical acceptance help our relationships? Well, we know that it'll help our own lives. It helps us create boundaries. When we're honest about who we are, we can show up more authentically, and we're showing up to our partner with who we really are, so they can decide whether they really like us or not, right? I mean, that's where it all starts. If we show up as somebody else, then they start liking somebody else. And, it's interesting. Many years ago, I was friends with my dear friend Hope, and she knew me as a single woman and a woman in relationship. And one time after a breakup, I was so broken, I was so sad and everything, although I did the breaking up. We were walking on our daily walk, and she said to me, "What happens to you in relationship? You're fine as a single woman. What happens to you when you go into a relationship?" And I could trust this woman. And that's when the work began, when I had to stop and say, okay, what happens to me? Well, number one, I lose myself and become who I think they want me to be, without even asking them. I so many assumptions going on there, right? Two, they mirror back to me who I've become, and I don't like it. So I eventually break up with them. And then I say, why did I lose myself to start with? Well, it comes from that original wound of not feeling worthy and not feeling good enough and not feeling deserving. And that's when the work began. The work of accepting myself and loving myself, the things that I liked. And at that time I was in CODA, and it was doing my fourth step. I actually had to do my fourth step 4 times. I don't know, maybe that's common, but I did it 4 times with 4 different sponsors. And each time it was a layering, a learning, a growing, and a showing up brighter and brighter to who I am. So, and as I grow and change and meet new people, I'm always seeing my reflection and adjusting accordingly. That's actually the 10th step, right? To continue to take personal inventory. So, radical acceptance does 4 things. Life is going to happen. It happens for us and through us. And this is a powerful way to live. So as we incorporate radical acceptance, it supports our overall health by reducing stress and anxiety. It gives us space to have more fun and adventure in life. It gives us the opportunity to be more solution-oriented. And it gives us the opportunity to empower your story and not be a victim. Now I'm going to end our talk right here because we have more after the song. So I want to say thank you. I love you. I appreciate you. I behold the Christ in you and know that you're blessed and a blessing, and I'll be back. I'm going to try not to do this and cry. I'm going to try not to cry and do this. So, in a marriage, partners benefit from acceptance. Some resistance to this idea of acceptance because it feels like giving up or giving in. Remember that no one is perfect and no two people will be perfectly aligned on every issue. Today we have two people that have been doing this dance of acceptance for 40 years. Oh, I'd like to call Boris and Michelle up here. Wow. I won't. So, they got married on September 15th, 40 years ago today, 1984, yes. We are honored to be here to bless and celebrate the 40-year wedding anniversary of you guys. The 40th anniversary is symbolized by the precious gemstone, ruby. It is a stone of devotion, happiness, and passion. Ruby brings vitality and vigor. It aligns and brings energy to the body. Ruby encourages to live fully and embrace whatever happens. It allows one to see strength from the heart. Now, Boris either knew this or was it channeled through him or something because it was the first gift that he ever gave Michelle. Ruby earrings and a necklace. Marriage is the agreement, which is the very sacrament of divine love. This expression of the radiant energy of love in its infinite manifestations is what life is all about. The essence of this sacred partnership is the acceptance of each other in his or her eternity as lover, companion, and friend, as parent to Natalia and Michael, and as grandparents to Timothy and James. To this moment, you bring the fullness of your hearts to share with each other, the devotion as the ruby symbolizes. Now, even though you haven't said these exact words, I know you've expressed the sentiments contained in them. I love you, not only for what you are, but for what I am when I'm with you. I love you not only for what you made of yourself, but for what you are making of us. I love you for drawing into the light all of the beautiful and radiant things no one else has looked quite far enough to find. You have done it without a touch, without a word, without a sign. You have done it by being yourself. So beautiful. Today we are here to bless this sacred union, and I will now read A Wave of Blessing by Tony Brady. We all have the ability to bless. All our lives can be a blessing upon others. All our words can be a blessing and can transfer love and comfort, as can our thoughts. One definition of a blessing is a circle of light drawn around a person, or in this case, a circle of light drawn around Michelle and Boris to protect, heal, and strengthen. Let us hold Boris and Michelle in a circle of light and blessing of love. As we send out this love, it comes back to us 1,000-fold. The more love you give away, the more love comes back to you. It is a law. So may the sun never set on your love for each other. And we'd like to offer you the unity blessing. For those that you don't know, it's we love you, we appreciate you, we bless you, and we behold the Christ in you. We love you, we appreciate you, we bless you, and we behold the Christ as you. And so it is. Michelle and Boris, may you enjoy at least another 40 years together.